It's time for Access the Experts from the University of Nebraska at Omaha with your host, Brandon Axamit.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Access the Experts on News Channel Nebraska, where every Tuesday and Thursday, University of Nebraska at Omaha faculty members answer today's questions facing our state. Now today we have the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Brian Ricks, who is an assistant professor of computer science at UNO. So Dr. Ricks, today's question is there a way to predict how crowds move?
Thanks, Brandon. That is a very poignant question, especially in light of the events at the Astro World Festival in Houston. A whole bunch of concert goers get together, they're having a great time, and then bam, all of a sudden something goes wrong, people get hurt, and in this case, some people actually die. So can computers model how people move? The answer is yes. It's been happening for a long time, and it's getting better and better every year. When I talk about this with my students, I often reference Hollywood because there's great examples in Hollywood of these algorithms improving in big blockbuster movies. By the late 1980s, people were developing algorithms or procedures for moving computer herds. We first see this in Hollywood in 1993's Jurassic Park. There's this big herd of dinosaurs that's all controlled by a computer. The next year, in The Lion King, we have Simba down in a gorge and Mufasa up on a cliff. And in between it all is this huge stampede of wildebeest, thousands and thousands of animals. Disney knew they would never be able to animate all of those creatures, but they knew if they used a herding procedure and then added animations afterwards, they could produce that dramatic scene. And they did, and it worked. Perhaps the most famous movie, or movies in terms of simulation, is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. By the late 1990s, people have moved from how to move herds of animals to how do we simulate the movement of people. In the Lord of the Rings, there's these huge battles between humans and orcs entirely created using simulations on a computer. Well, while all this is happening in Hollywood, the same kind of progress is being made in academia and industry as people are trying to improve the flow and safety of public spaces. Recently, Mecca went through a major renovation. This sacred site brings lots of pilgrims who want to worship there, but sometimes there's been crowd-crushing events in Mecca, much larger than the ones we saw at Astro World Festival here. Well, working together with computer science researchers and experts in simulation, they figured out if they put elliptical barriers throughout the crowd would move faster and easier, and people would be safer. It may seem counterintuitive to you that adding barriers would make a crowd flow faster, but it's true. If you've ever been to a theme park, they create barriers around where the line should form, and they get a lot more people in there. If you've ever been to a parking lot after it snowed and there's no lines to park between, you know that there's not as much room as you'd like to park. These kind of constraints can be very helpful. Me and my colleagues do this kind of research for lots of people. NBA arenas, NFL stadiums, big transit facility stations, UNMC. So to answer your question, the answer is yes. We can simulate people, and they do make it safer for people to move around. Back to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Dr. Ricks, for sharing your expertise on the topic. Now for our viewers at home, we want you to interact with UNO's experts. So if you have a question that you want answered, submit it at newschannelnebraska.com.
Access the Experts, presented by the University of Nebraska at Omaha. If you have questions, submit them on our website and join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6:46 a.m. while we answer your questions.